A good camera is important, but a good camera without light is just a really expensive cassette tape recorder. And pairing a good camera with poor quality lights is only one step better. Which is why we're going to illuminate professional lighting solutions. From tungstens and fluorescents to HMIs and LEDs, next on TechKnow. Let's start out with a little test of your lighting director skills. How many lights are being used in this scene? First, we have a hair light up high. Second, we have a backlight off to the side. Third and fourth, we have two backdrop lights. Fifth, we have a key light, which is diffused. And sixth, we have a fill light, which is almost as bright as our key. That's 6 total. Besides the position and the role of these lights, we actually have 2 different kinds of lights. Tungsten, hair, key, and fill lights, and fluorescent back and background lights. Let's start with the hair light up high. This is a classic RE tungsten halogen spot instrument and runs hot and bright and casts a hard light that's easy to control with barn doors. The color temperature is 3200 kelvins, which is a standard for indoor studio lighting. The lamp itself is just a glass tube with a tungsten filament that's pretty much the same as the tungsten filaments in household bulbs. An electrical current flows through the filament, which heats up to a few thousand degrees. The intensely heated filament radiates excess energy as photons of visible light. Tungsten will burn at these temperatures in oxygen, so household light bulbs are filled with an inert gas, usually argon. While the filament doesn't burn, it does evaporate. So in a bright tungsten video light, instead of a passively inert argon gas, the lamp is filled with the halogen gas. This actually reacts with the evaporated tungsten, which is redeposited on the filament, extending not only the life of the lamp, but more importantly, allowing it to run at much higher temperatures. A tungsten lamp can easily generate enough heat to melt glass. Therefore, these small lamps are made out of fused quartz. And now the full name of this technology is revealed: the incandescent tungsten halogen quartz lamp, otherwise known as the halogen at home or tungsten on set. The big problem with this technology is that it's not very efficient, with maybe 10% of the input energy being converted into actual light, if you're lucky. The other 90% is radiated as heat, which not only makes tungstens extremely hot and dangerous, but it also means that they're really uncomfortable to shoot under. Trust me on this. Fluorescents, on the other hand, don't generate much heat at all. Standard office variety fluorescent tubes are filled with an inert gas. Argon works fine, with just a drop of liquid mercury. Each end has an electrode that generates a voltage potential across the tube. When the electricity is turned on, the mercury vaporizes into a gas, and an electron current begins to flow. Some of these electrons collide with the mercury atoms, which are thereby stimulated to emit invisible ultraviolet photons. These photons then strike the white powder phosphorus coating on the inside of the tube, stimulating it to re-emit visible light. The alternating electrical current in these tubes generates more and more electrons, which can cause a cascade effect that runs away without some sort of modulation. In the past, this was accomplished with magnetic ballasts, which were the cause of the seizure-inducing flicker and the audible shot-ruining hum notoriously associated with fluorescence. Today, most modern fixtures and tubes use electronic ballasts that operate at much higher frequencies. Since the color of a fluorescent tube is determined by the phosphorus coating inside of the tube, it should be possible in principle to create lights of any color. And in practice, it is. You can find fluorescent instruments that are explicitly designed for video with a color temperature of 3200 kelvins. You can even find really inexpensive fluorescents at your local hardware store rated at 3100 kelvins, which are very usable for video work in the studio, or 5500 Kelvin lamps that will work very nicely as outdoor fill lights. At the expensive end of the professional lighting spectrum are HMI instruments. This is what you'll find lighting the major sound stages and location shoots on big budget pictures and television shows. The simple reason for this is that they really pump out a lot of light, and they're much more cool and efficient than tungsten-based technology. HMI stands for Hydrargium Medium Arc Iodide. Hydrargium is apparently an anachronistic word for mercury. Why hydrargium and not cinnabar or quicksilver, I really don't know. But the basic principle of an HMI lamp involves an electrical arc, presumably a medium one, that spans a gap between two electrodes in a quartz glass enclosure filled with pressurized mercury vapor. This vapor is stimulated to emit a blinding quantity of light without a lot of heat. Like modern fluorescence, a high-frequency electronic ballast modulates the arc and eliminates flicker. Besides being on the high end of the price spectrum, HMIs are also at the higher end of the visible spectrum as well, at about 5600 kelvins, which is roughly the color temperature outside on a sunny day. Since they have a different color temperature from tungstens or video fluorescence, you'll also need to color correct with color correction gels to mix these different kinds of lights together. The final light we'll talk about today is also the future of lighting: LEDs, or light-emitting diodes. I'm not going to spend any time on the details of this technology this time because it's just now starting to become available. LEDs are currently being used in everything from the tiniest keychain flashlights to car headlights to traffic signals. They last pretty much forever, are indestructible, and are extremely energy efficient. Banks of tiny LEDs may ultimately turn out to be the perfect video light, and as prices go down, there's no question that these lights will be huge in video production. The next time we visit this topic, tungstens may be a thing of the past, and inexpensive modular LED banks will be all the rage. In any case, a good light kit of whatever type is, dollar for dollar, one of the best long-term investments you can make to improve the quality of your video.